Every Englishman needs his castle. Nestled around the banks of the lake in Cracowick stood a baggy circle of houses, each separated from its neighbours by a neat garden leading to a splash of shore. Every property had a distinctive feature: a landing, a jetty, a pretty pebbled beach, or a wooden boathouse. This was a pleasant enough community, a lucky place to live, though somewhat uncongenial. For as long as the locals could remember, imposing featherboard fences had guarded the boundary lines as if to say, "It's nice to know you are there, but please don't come a-calling. We don't know you from Adam. You might be the wrong sort." But change being the only constant, something was shifting. The trouble came. Towns and cities descending into ruin. Somewhat isolated, the lake dwellings stood their ground for a while, but inevitably succumbed. Company arrived late at night, uninvited, and in ravenous, self-righteous rage. Some residents were forced to run for their lives. Others joined the hunt and pursued. Some were caught, some escaped, and afterwards, when everyone was otherwise occupied, saving what they could of their once proud manners, someone rowed a little boat to the centre of the lake, where it bobbed gently on the surface, dim in the distance. It was rumoured to belong to someone who'd liberated themselves from the violence by deliberate drowning. In the eerie quiet after the fury, the boat became a kind of drifting memorial, its little red flag flapping, a melancholy reminder of a lost neighbour never to be known. Then, one day, quite nonchalantly, a wooden structure appeared around the boat. Soon this became a platform, then a roof, walls, windows. In the middle of the lake, away from the ring of ravaged houses, under the cover of night, someone was constructing a shanty home from the flotsam and jetsam of the destruction. The improvised houseboat challenged the locals who had forever looked out into the water and away from one another. This dissident dwelling was an all-seeing eye, seeking the shore where an uneasy peace had settled. A discussion began about rowing a boat out there to have a word about this eyesore, but of course the stealthy builder would see them coming, and there was no telling if they would be friendly. Someone said something about going out there en masse at night, but someone else countered that all construction took place after dark, and they didn't fancy being sitting ducks for some weirdo, especially if it meant being knocked unconscious into the cold water. Who knew what was floating around out there after all the trouble? There was shock and mumbling at this comment that ended the whole conversation. People didn't want to think about all that. Least said, soonest mended. The remaining residents got on with cleaning up all the mess and agreed that this new dwelling, this panopticon, should be left alone for now. It grew undisturbed until it stood resplendent, its windsocks stiff, fishing nets at the ready, its currach drawn up like a lifeboat at its side. The lakeside residents did their best to ignore the interloper and kept busy, managing their own devastation. Before long, the Might reached the lakeside in their gentle, cloudy uniforms. They inspected the progress being made and, satisfied, turned towards the glittering water to notice the peaceful house with its little boat tucked in snugly. This was all too much. Too smug, too striking. Who would make such a thing? A nonconformist, certainly. A dangerous radical, possibly. This required attention. After conferring, the Might waited till nightfall, then rode out silently to take the place by stealth. The neighbours watched from the shore as the scouts climbed aboard, black shadows against the dark light. Breathless, the crowd waited, but there was little noise and no fight, the occupants having already swum away quietly in the twilight. They had, of course, a perfect view of the action unfolding on the shore. After surveying in astonishment the contents of the house, with its books and tools, drawings and plans and fledgling roof garden, the mite began to smash and burn with a glee unrestrained, as if at a party. Then they watched from their flotilla as the lake house sank from sight. The crowd dispersed with a sigh and went to bed. The next day the sun came up as usual, and nothing was left but the morning and the memory of a watchful eye.